Okay, I feel like we should talk or something, Toby. Are we on now, or is this? Are we in?
We're recording.
This is the bit of the podcast where I talk about where I'm located presently, or I'm hot, or something before we get.
No. This is the pre-show. We've never done. This has never been broadcast before.
Oh, okay.
This is normally when we're sitting down. I'm playing Chill Wave as I'm wont to do.
Mm-hmm. All right.
And we're all getting situated.
Okay.
We talk about the real shit that we can't put on the air.
That's right. So we could be more forthright now and just not include it in the actual public broadcast.
Yeah, we won't. We are recording it.
Right, okay.
So for blackmail purposes...
So I shouldn't, make up racial epithets or anything that would get me in trouble later?
Not any more than you normally do.
Okay, good. All right.
Yeah.
I'll keep it to normal then.
Keep it to a baseline Heaton invented racial epithet.
You know what? We're going to drop this joke as a runner.
Yeah.
That was reasonably funny for about 25 seconds. I now regret it. That was a door I did not mean to open.
Yeah.
I would like to know...
Sorry.
How is life in the fuck bus in our nation's capital?
It's been very good, thank you. It's been very good. I have
life in the fuck bus.
come to the point where I am living in my friend Austin Bragg's yard. So it's about what I thought I would be doing at 40. My dog loves it. Wallace is having a great time.
Where's Wallace now if you're here?
Wallace is at... So I purchased temporary fencing that I put around the bus to create... like a vestibule that connects to Austin's yard so that Wallace is now a free-range dog. And he is there and should be drugged at this moment as he suffers from incredible separation anxiety. I thought about bringing him here tonight, and I was like, we probably don't need any more factors, including a dog in a necktie. So maybe next time. But he's in the nation's capital right now.
When asked for comment, Wallace said,
Have you guys ever heard it on air when an ambulance goes by?
Yeah. Wallace sings. There's a lot of rabbits in Washington, D.C. So like in Austin, Texas, he started this habit of capturing and trying to dismember turtles. That is his hobby. And in Washington, D.C., he tries to capture rabbits. So far, no, but someday.
Poor turtles. Yeah. That story still makes me sad.
Oh, what do you have? Why are you in concert with Big Turtle?
We've covered this today, Justin. I saw a squirrel today, and I had to let Justin know that I not only like squirrels, but I also love rats. And I like tiny creatures. And
turtles aren't tiny.
Yes, they are in Austin. They're like the size of a dinner plate. At most.
That's tiny?
Yeah, have you seen the babies? They're like this big.
Nobody looks at a dinner plate and says, how tiny? No one tries tiny things you put in your pocket.
But that's the biggest the turtle gets. Have you ever seen like a desert tortoise? No, that's a big turtle. Austin turtles are much smaller.
Everything against the Galapagos, then they're all going to be small.
I would like to get one of the... You can't buy a Galapagos tortoise because they're endangered. But there's this other version that's like 3/4 as big, and it's not endangered. And I think that would be cool to affix a table to, and just have like a moving cocktail table in your backyard. Like you'd be like, Justin, you want a lemonade? Wait 20 minutes. You'd ring a bell, and then eventually the thing would crawl up.
I'm actually behind this plan. Yeah. That one works.
Yeah. I will eventually have a menagerie. This is the ultimate goal, is to live in Austin Bragg's yard. And in Arlington, Texas, and just increase the number of animals that are living there until I'm kicked out.
I'm so pissed off at myself that I haven't labeled you as somebody who looks like he owns a menagerie yet.
Yeah.
Room for growth.
Yeah. And there's ways, because that could become the Bond villain menagerie guy who's collecting, I don't know, weird endangered polar bears or something.
Yeah.
Or just
well, no, because right now you look like a Hammond from Jurassic Park prequel.
Yes.
The one where he's the swashbuckling cocksmith of a protagonist.
Wait, I can't remember what was he. He was just English, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
If he finds some mosquitoes, I think we could bring the dinosaurs back.
Spared no expense.
Yeah, spared no expense. Yeah.
That'd be awesome if that was his catchphrase.
Didn't you both get a tour of the Capitol? Can we talk about this? Is this above board? Didn't you have a fun day?
We did. We had the best day.
Nice.
Yeah.
How was that? Did Did you get to stand in the middle and make a wish? Like, what did you do?
Well, so I got to go not only to the House floor for the first time, but I also got to go into the committees and sit in the chair where the chairman usually sits. They have a mute button. That's what I'm taking from this, is that it exists, and I'm surprised they don't use it more. But yeah, I was like a little kid in this place. It was, thank you. Do you mind if I out you? Yeah. Reed brought us around the Capitol today.
He works there. He's staying in the grass. He's a congressional employee. He's not himself.
Had the best time, so thank you for that. But yeah, I had been in the Senate, like the, where the peasants can go and look before, but I had never been in the House side. So to not only go into the floor, into the committees, and see all the weird shit that they put on the wall out their offices, like that was a surprise to me.
When I was there, as I recall, they'd have different flags.
Yeah.
Lots of different flags, but
they've stepped up their game.
Like busts, like sculptures now.
There's people's pictures,
cool.
Post-it notes. Rashida Tlaib has a lot of Post-it notes.
That never even occurred. Are you allowed to decorate the hall? That never even occurred to me, Reed. You can do that. You just feel like he loves Jurassic Park. You just have like nothing but Jurassic Park posters. Like, who's that guy from Oklahoma? He's really into Michael Crichton.
I'd just put 10 big mouth Billy Basses, and I'd hit all the buttons at the same time on my way out.
That would be great.
I always like a lot of the members' offices have a map of the district behind them. Like you'll come in and you'll see a map of the district, and you're like, that looks like 2 squids on a surfboard. That is gerrymandered as fuck.
Yeah.
You've not had a competitive election in 80 years.
Yeah.
We went to our collective congressman's office, Lloyd Doggett, and he had
some
all
rumors about him, by the way.
What's that?
No, just I don't know, stuff I've heard.
Be nice to Lloyd Doggett.
I'm not. He's a nice guy. He's my congressman. I'm just saying. There's troubling.
Okay.
Troubling whispers.
We're gonna ignore him.
If only there was somebody that would run to replace him. I don't know.
Be nice to
Troubling
Lloyd Doggett.
whispers about this Lloyd Doggett character.
Stop it.
Just saying. Oh, I've determined I'm not going to be your campaign manager, by the way. I'm going to run a super PAC.
Oh, nice.
So she legally can't stop me.
Immediately, we'll contribute $100 of lizard people for Jen Briney.
They're serious about this, by the way.
Draft Briney. Draft Briney.
Yeah.
Run, Jen, run.
Please don't.
Gossip mongers for Jen.
Yep.
There's a lot of different super PACs we can come up with. This could be fun.
Why, Lloyd, why?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, we went into his office, and he had like 5 different district maps because his district has been gerrymandered so many times that he has represented very different parts of Texas.
Well, in Cleveland. Now he's actually awesome.
Yeah, it was kind of funny because I looked at our district and I'm like, whoa, that's really gerrymandered. And she's like, well, it got better, and points to the one that we have now.
You have a British accent.
You have a British staff.
She does not.
No, she didn't.
She was from Sunset Valley.
Maybe she was so Texan that the horseshoe theory, she actually came out British on the other end.
Yeah, I just channeled Monty Python there.
It must be nice to have a voting congressperson.
Thank you, audience member.
Who did have a foreign accent. Don't worry, we have a topic for you later.
Wait, was that because you're registered in D.C. or because you're originally from another country? Because I detected an accent. You're from Belfast. Okay.
He's from Belfast, but he lives in
DC.
DC, and he can't be represented, which is really, really cool because you also don't have a mic. So at least you're used to it.
Sorry, I have a lot of training in minimally pleasant crowd work, and so I'm going into my basics. But
man, is there anything else? What else did you learn on our trip of the Capitol, Jen?
Well, did you learn anything?
Yeah, where to get in next time. Too soon? Hoping that would be a bigger laugh and we could take it into the credits, but nope. We keep going. We soldier on.
We learned a lot about statues. So it was one of Ronald Reagan. Very cool tip that under Ronald Reagan is a layer of the Berlin Wall, which I thought was very cool.
Was this at the Capitol?
Yeah,
Was that one of the state statues? Because
Yeah.
I can't fathom California's keeping Reagan as one of their 2 statues.
Yeah, they are.
It is.
California is redder than you think. There's a lot of
Yeah, but
red
they're not the ones who make the decisions.
They're not the ones running the government. So for people unfamiliar with this, which I don't know what the demographics here, just for my benefit, can you raise your hand if you live in D.C. or near D.C.? Okay, so like you're all lobbyists that are familiar with this. So you know, but for folks at home, that each state delegation and probably some of the territories get to have 2 statues that they get to have. And I'm surprised that California has Reagan. My favorite is, there's one of General George Sevier, or Sevier, I don't know, it looks like Sevier, and it says, it's from Tennessee, and it's first governor of the state of Franklin. And you look at it and go, Alabama, Alaska, Arkansas, Kentucky, I don't fucking remember it. Like, apparently there was like a startup state. And it was like
the WeWork of states.
The WeWork of states. It was a part of North Carolina, but it was the mountainous part of North Carolina that didn't have plantations and therefore was not connected to the slave economy. Completely different economy going on. Very, very populous. As I recall, this startup state banned money. They only did bartering, and you couldn't hold office if you were a doctor or a lawyer. Those were the rules. You couldn't hold office. And they were trying to
keep going.
Admit it into the Union, and so they named themselves Franklin after Benjamin Franklin, who was still alive, hoping that he would be, and he thought they were fucking crazy. And had nothing to do with them, and it just fizzled out, and then it came right back as the great state of Tennessee. So, yeah.
Hey.
Yeah, and my state, Oklahoma, has a statue of a horse, probably. I don't know. I don't know. We named 2 of our airports after guys that died in the same airplane crash. So I don't know what our statues. Probably Will Rogers, do you know? Is it Will Rogers? Yeah.
What's the other one? The Big Bopper?
Yeah. Wiley Post. I don't know who the other one. It'll be Carl Albert, I'm sure. Is it Carl Albert? You know? Oh, okay. So okay. That all Native American, also good. Oklahoma.
Good. Yeah, I don't know. It was really fun to be in the mix and see all the things that you see. Just all the background of Manu Raja running. Like it was good to see all that.
Yeah, I was kind of amazed when we went by like the speaker's office and Steve Scalise's office. Like they're right where all the tourists are. Like I just assumed people had their own wings and never had to mix amongst, those of us in flip-flops. But they do. They walk out of their office and have to walk through us. And there was just something that I loved about that. You have to see us, you have to smell us.
They should organize people and then come out like a sports team, like maybe run through a banner.
Yeah.
They should rub Martin Luther King's head on the way in or something like that, like just for good luck.
I want a very efficient government, which is why I think they should have fireman poles. I think that would be really cool. Just like imagine like floor vote, whoosh, 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 whoosh. That would also take care of some of the term limit problems we're running into.
From Washington, D.C. She's Jen Brining.
I'm Andrew Eaton.
I'm Justin Robert Young. I have no idea. Jen, you say my name because I said yours.
That's Justin Robert Young.
And we're not wrong. On this edition of the program, we will talk about Samuel Alito's flags. We will talk about Nikki Haley endorsing Donald Trump, as well as your questions here. Heaton, you didn't come to the Capitol today. What did you do? Why are you so big and powerful that you couldn't visit the People's House?
I was making funny political satire videos about the national debt. There should be a video coming out very soon of me dressed as a captain staring at an iceberg that says national debt on it until it hits me with very little dialogue. It took me a lot of time to come up with that premise, and we were working on that today.
The power of those videos will never be more encapsulated to me than when we were on the junket to the border, and Carol Markowitz, who works for the New York Post, just was on our same plane heading down, and as Heaton is making his way by her, she just points and goes, "Brett Kavanaugh! Brett Kavanaugh!"
Yeah. Yeah, I really missed my calling being a professional Brett Kavanaugh impersonator.
Yeah.
Could have made a lot of money there. Probably, gotten a lot of tail.
Don't like beer enough. Professional fake boofer. So I'm glad the 6 of you showed up. Let's get into our first story here. After the 2020 election and subsequent January 6th riot, Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito's home displayed an upside-down American flag. The New York Times reports that the flag, as seen by neighbors on January 17th, signified support for rioters of the January 6th riot and the Stop the Steal movement. This raises questions of impartiality, as the court will soon decide on cases that will affect the DOJ prosecuting Trump for that scheme. Justice Alito stated that his wife placed the flag in response to a neighbor's offensive sign. The controversy added to the tension on Alito Street and highlighted broader issues of political statements by judges impacting public confidence in the judiciary. 2 years after the upside-down American flag was flown outside Alito's Virginia home, an Appeal to Heaven flag was displayed at his New Jersey vacation home. The Times reported that that flag is also connected to the January 6th riots and Christian nationalism. Photographs from multiple dates in 2023 show that flag, although it's unclear how long it's been up. Son of a judge, Andrew Heaton. Should Alito recuse himself from the January 6th decision? Likely to be announced in the coming weeks.
Not only do I think he should not recuse himself from that decision, I think it would be a very, very bad move for the court's legitimacy as a whole if he did. Welcome. Come on in, everybody. Let's run through what happened, and then we'll talk about the judicial mechanics of what's going on. So the story that I think the New York Times broke and has been covering since like May 16th or so was that, as you point out, there was a upside-down American flag that, as we all know, means stop the steal, and handing the presidency to Donald Trump. Whenever I've ever in my entire life seen an upside-down flag, that is, of course, where my mind goes. And that flew for a few days, and then later, come to find out, he has what looks like a pine tree on a white flag flying at his vacation home in New Jersey, which was the most surprising part of all of this to me, that he has a vacation home in New Jersey. So first, I know a few federal judges, and I really want to drive this home. Federal judges are not super aware of pop culture trends or anything that would be described as an inside joke. They don't know internet culture. I would be very surprised to begin with if Alito was hanging out with Stop the Steal people and went, this shall communicate this thing. This is what it will be. I think the more likely explanation for that instance is that his wife, who probably does like Donald Trump, I don't know, I think her name's Martha Ann Alito, she confronted him.
Damn, Alito head over here.
Yeah. When you're playing Brett Kavanaugh once every 6 years, you have to figure these things out. Somebody had a fuck Trump sign. I'm going to swear for this. Apologies. But this is I instead of looking up rules on the judicial council, blah, 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 on recusal, I went down a deep gossip hole, and I am now going to open prolapsed DC gossip hole for your benefit. So there was a fuck Trump sign in a neighbor's yard in presumably Northwest DC or a surrounding suburb, like maybe 50 feet from a kid's bus stop. Martha Ann Alito walked by and said something to the neighbor to the effect of, that sign is offensive, it says fuck, or it shouldn't be right where the kids go on the bus or something. I don't know how mean or nice she was. By accounts that have gotten out, the guy said something to the effect of, you're a cunt, and it's your fault that all this happened. And her response was to do the absolute most spouse of a judge thing I can think of, which is to go home and quietly throw a flag upside down in protest. In my mind, that is the most logical scenario that happened here. And she might like Trump, I don't know. He might like Trump, I don't know. But that so far is what I'm reading from that. The New York Times has kind of gone into overdrive to say he's telegraphing what he thinks about Donald Trump and what he thinks about Stop the Steal, and for that reason is illegitimate in his ability to rule on anything regarding this. Now, the one that is trickier, I will acknowledge, is the Appeal to Heaven flag, which I have never heard of nor seen until today. That is it looks like a white flag. It says appeal to heaven, I think in text or something on the top, and it's a green flag, or a green pine wood.
I legit thought it had something to do with Christmas when I saw it in the January 6th photos. I was like, okay, let's bring Santa into this too.
It's one of those old-timey vintage American Revolution flags. Like, I would be amazed if no one in the audience right now, if no one in the audience has either a Getson flag T-shirt or a Getson flag hat. Somebody here does. There you go, and he's got a beard. And there's another guy, right? So,
well, there's a shocker.
Yeah, Getson flag, another old-timey thing, means a lot of different things to people. Main thing it means is
Getson flags fall out of a beard when it gets of a certain length.
Yeah. You grow the mustache, they gave it to you.
It comes out.
It's an old-timey Revolutionary battle flag. It was designed by George Washington's secretary.
Don't tread on me is what you would...
like the snake deal?
With the snake.
Well, no, I'm sorry. The pine, what I'm going to call the pinewood flag, the appeal to heaven flag.
Yes.
That was one of George Washington's battle flags. And it's currently, I'm amazed to learn, the ensign flag, the ensign maritime flag of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So it's actually still a part of the official flags of the Constitution of Commonwealth of Massachusetts. That was flying for several days at Alito's vacation home, inexplicably in New Jersey. Inexplicably, again, being the New Jersey part, not the flag. This has all been taken to go. Clearly, he's in the can for Trump. Clearly, he cannot make a good ruling on this. Therefore, he should recuse himself. The problem that I have with all of this, one minor problem that I do have, is they shouldn't be flying flags with political statements. That's not cool. It's not kosher. It's in bad taste. Every judge in America has political opinions. There's no way to get to the point where you're a judge where you don't have thoughts on politics. You probably know the people who appointed you if you're a federal judge, because it goes through the president and the Senate has to recommend you. But you're not supposed to telegraph those, because impartiality is very important and neutrality is very important. So if I were him and his wife, I would be having a very frank conversation about what types of flags we're flying and the effects of them. I think that's in poor taste. I don't think it's to the level of recusing anything. And in terms of the recusement, we have instances of judges saying what they think about something. As of now, in the last 10 years, I would say that Ruth Bader Ginsburg had a much stronger position on how she felt about Trump than Alito did. Now, with Alito, we're trying to read tea leaves right now by judging upside-down flag standards. Ruth Bader Ginsburg said, I might move to New Zealand if Trump is elected, and said he was a very bad choice and a faker and things like that. I don't disagree with her, but it was a bad thing for her to do at the time. And it also did not mean that she should have recused herself. Recusing yourself is something you do when you as a judge say, I am incapable of arriving at an impartial decision on this case. The litigant is my son, or I own stock in the company, or I'm on the board of directors of the company, or something like that. Most of the time when recusals happen, it's because previously I was a participant in the case. I was a prosecutor before I was a judge, and so I've actually represented them. I couldn't do it. For Alito at this point to recuse himself would be to say that if somebody is interpreted as having a political opinion, they should probably recuse themselves. And with the Supreme Court, you can't pass the decision on to somebody else. If a district judge recuses themselves, it just goes to another judge. On the Supreme Court, it just goes down. And now you've got 8 people instead of 9 people. So I think if he does this, it's going to politicize this whole process more than it already is. And so he and his wife should quit flying flags, but he shouldn't recuse himself.
Jen Brady.
I actually largely agree with you that the thing that really stuck out to me is how quickly he threw his wife under the bus. I was like, she did it.
I had no knowledge of my wife's actions regarding the flag or something like that.
Yeah, it's like, I only live there. Like, okay. Especially in the New Jersey one, because those neighbors took pictures on multiple days. So he definitely knew that was flying in front of his house. But he was like, yeah, it was her. I had nothing to do with it. So I just think that shows bad character.
He has not commented on the appeal to heaven flag. The only one that he threw his wife under the bus on was the upside down flag.
Oh.
Yeah.
Even then, right under the bus.
Under there.
Yep.
Tire tracks on old Maria's back.
Martha, but yes.
Martha?
Was it Martha?
I think it's...
Why did you say that name?
Martha Ann or something?
Yeah.
So by the way, just so you all know, somebody was shaking their head like an oscillating fan in the back, like is friends with her or something. So I'll defer, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Not out of I mean, or it could be the person who said fuck Trump.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there is some interesting parts to it where it was a reaction to a fuck Trump sign. And I don't know, there's 2 words there, right? In Austin, there's a business that has decided to put that word on their sign. And I don't like it. I say the word all the time, but I don't like that it's just out there like that. So if that's the thing she was mad about, I know, but I get it, you know. I tell my nieces and nephews, like, that's an adult word, and that is something that I don't want kids being like, oh, that's easy to spell. Like, it's just, I get it, you know, like kids can read it and they can read it by the time they're like 4. So if that's what she's mad about, that's one thing. But the second word was Trump. And so the action was political, maybe, because if she was putting the flag upside down because she was angry that there was a political sign, like, it's just bad judgment on that family's part. Like, it's such an easy thing to not do. So I'm just looking at a lot of like judgment things, but does that mean that he can't rule on the case? Like, no, I don't think it goes that far. I'm far more concerned about Clarence Thomas having his wife Ginny, who was, you know, one of the Jan 6 bumpkins. So that one concerns me far more than Alito. I don't think this rises to the standard of you have to recuse yourself.
I am more bothered by the Clarence Thomas than this one. I think this one's pretty clear cut, and I think this one's largely a political hit job. I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence that we're finding this now.
Oh, really?
And late May, 3 years after it happened, almost like it was being sat on until it was an opportune moment to try to delegitimize a justice.
The week before the announcement.
Yes, odd that.
Weird.
I'm more bothered by Clarence Thomas. I think his wife's a tad goofy. And I think in a situation like that where you've got a justice whose spouse is active in political circles, there's more room for that. I don't know that there's a whole lot, unless we want all the justices' spouses to be 50s housewives. I don't think there's a way around that, though. Because, like, again, most of you are lobbyists based on the applause we got earlier. You live in the D.C. My guess is if you're married that your spouse probably works in politics in some capacity. I don't know that there's a lot around that. There was a case here about maybe 10 years ago. I want to say it was in a circuit court when the build-up to Hodges v. Overfell was happening that legalized gay marriage in the country, where a circuit judge, I think in California, his wife was a member of an ACLU board that was trying to get gay marriage legalized. And there were attempts to get him to recuse himself. And he said, look, my wife's opinions are my wife's opinions. They do not influence my ability to rule on a case. I'm not recusing myself. And I think he was correct about that.
The line for me, though, and I think you actually said it really well, is participation. So when it comes to Ginny Thomas, she was participating in that effort. And so that's why I feel like where the Supreme Court is ruling whether or not obstruction can be applied to the people that were participants in that, like, that's where it's kind of like your wife participated in a way. I don't think she was, you know, beating cops or anything like that. But where she was a participant in a way, I do think that that rises to the level of he should recuse himself.
That's not this case. This case is about what, yeah.
If she were under criminal prosecution or something like that, like if she were one of the claimants or defendants or whatever, he should absolutely 100% recuse himself. That's the exact kind of thing you should recuse yourself for, yeah. In the upcoming instance with Trump immunity, the other bit too is like with Clarence Thomas, I am pretty sure I know how Clarence Thomas is going to rule on stuff. Like I do not feel that he's somebody that involves a crystal ball for me. He's got a very, very clearly articulated, rigid judicial interpretation that he's applied consistently for 20 years. So you might disagree with it, but like I don't think Clarence Thomas goes, no. I think he knows exactly what he's going to do.
I'm going to go back to the Alito story from a journalist perspective. Both those stories are fucking embarrassing. And the New York Times should be embarrassed to have run them. It is very sloppy work, extraordinarily sloppy work. And I think a Xerox copy of what certain elements of our political sphere would like to be out there to delegitimize what will likely be not what they want from the Supreme Court, which is the fact that they heard this case in the first place, which will likely punt the federal prosecution of Trump for January 6th past the election. The fact that they might complicate the case, punting it back even further because they're going to have some sort of line of exactly what is and is not immunity, while not giving him blanket immunity like he wants. They have a very good chance based on the questioning of having it be more complicated than it was. And so what do? you just fart in the air enough that you can cloud the idea and delegitimize the court. And that is something that is a political strategy right now for the Democrats. Think what you want about it. Like, my job is just to point out what they're doing. And right now, if Trump is more popular than they thought and the economy is bad, what they need to do is find a reason to talk about why abortion is gone. And if you can't blame Trump, you can blame the court. And so
you could specifically blame Alito too on that if you wanted
and
to.
you can blame Alito, but they're not going to do that. What they want to do is delegitimize this thing. And so here's why it's sloppy. Heaton, you mentioned that judges are famously not exactly pop culture savvy, right?
Yes. In fact, I think they know less pop culture than me based on all conversations I've had with them.
Do you want to know what the New York Times, the paper of record, the old gray lady, uses to prove that the upside down flag is an immutable symbol of January 6th and Stop the Steal?
What?
4 links. 2 of them are from Twitter that say, I'm very mad about the election. You should fly your flag upside down. They were posted 3 days after this incident happened on January 20th. One of which is from 4chan. Do you imagine Samuel Alito is an anon on 4chan? Is he a B-board regular?
I would not be surprised if Samuel Alito is still using AOL chat rooms.
And that would be pushing the bar.
Yeah.
And guess what? In the 4chan link, go look at it. For real, go look at this story. In the 4chan link, it's somebody saying, I'm mad about the election and I'm going to fly my flag upside down, and everyone makes fun of him! They say if you fly your flag upside down, it doesn't mean that you're in Australia. And then one of them is from Twitter, and it happened before it happened. But like, that is very sloppy, like so insanely sloppy. And it follows a pattern. And look, anybody who's right of center, this is not going to come as a surprise for you that the New York Times leans left, especially when we move into election years. But at the very least, you cannot just be a Xerox copy for agitprop from one side. And that's what they have been very consistently with RFK. They ran the brainworms thing, which was totally out of pocket, right? They ran the hit piece that we mentioned on our last episode with Shanahan, where every negative thing that you could possibly think of run without a single named source. And again, I'm for all these. Name the source. I think you should, when you're running that kind of stuff, at least make somebody put their name on it. And then you have this, where it's, you know, we're to believe that the appeal to heaven flag, and look, I'm probably to my detriment enmeshed in politics. I know way more gross, disgusting memes on both the left and the right than I probably care to. If Samuel Alito was flying a big Mike flag, Google it. I would say that's somebody who spends a lot of time online and is very enmeshed in the right, in the online meme right. I would not immediately have known the upside down flag is anything other than an SOS.
Distress.
You know,
well, we've seen it before all of this happened.
We saw it at the BLM riots.
Yeah.
Like, we see it every time that Americans are mad, they fly the flag upside down.
It would be amazing if the actual story for this is Mrs. Alito got called a cunt and went, how can I create camaraderie in the neighborhood? I will fly a BLM flag. I will fly an upside down American flag to let my neighbor know I agree.
Well, and to the appeal to heaven flag, the New York Times spends a lot of time tracing a current far right-wing religious figure that has spent a lot of time giving the flag to various different political figures.
Dutch something, or I can't remember his name,
Doug, I love God, whatever his name is. But to your point, if you are somebody that has a judge's mentality, which is very enmeshed in history, and you have oceanfront or ocean access property.
Would you like a flag that's also the maritime ensign of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and also a battle flag from the Revolutionary? Of course they.
Where do I click buy now? Can I get it on 2-day shipping? Like look, I'm gonna assume that Alito is a religious man. I think that religious people tend to like that flag if they are either A, very enmeshed in the idea of the Revolutionary War and like the word heaven because they're religious.
And the Christmas tree.
Or trees. One of the three.
He went into his New Jersey area and he's like, "Oh, my neighbors hate me, but everyone loves trees."
But here's
fly this flag.
Here's the other thing, then this gets into kind of the journalism on how these stories tend to progress. If you just ran a story, short 200-word story, Samuel Alito had an upside down American flag on his lawn right after, or a week and a half after January 6th. That's story one. Okay, you've decided to run that. I have some questions about the news justification of it, but it happened. You have pictures. There's that. If then the next story is reaction to that, and then you go to all of the ethics experts, all the judicial experts, and you have everybody weigh in, blah, 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 then that's the other thing. But they didn't do that. They ran one story where everything was prepackaged, including the reaction from all of the judicial experts, which means that, and I don't necessarily think oftentimes these things are not the reporter, they're the assignment editor and the story editor, that then you have to go get out and get more color. But it tells a very specific narrative, and I just have a really, really, really hard time believing. No, I don't believe it's anything else other than one specific narrative that is there to delegitimize the court. And for a side of the aisle that has spent a lot of times talking about our cherished norms and how we need to make sure that we don't overturn very important establishments, you can have your opinions on whether or not that's good or not. My role is to be a soulless hack journalist, and I think that that's just shoddy work.
I mean, the upside down flag in that particular time period between January 6th and the inauguration, it could be a reaction to how horrified they were at January 6th. Like, unless you've actually talked to them and asked them why it's upside down, you don't actually know, because in those 2 weeks, everyone seemed to be mad no matter who you were for various reasons. Now, it is the Alitos, so we all have our suspicions. But like you said, facts are facts and rumors are rumors.
It would also be really funny if she just didn't realize she did it. She just, I'm gonna go watch Real Housewives of Detroit or whatever the fuck. This whole thing turned into a deal.
Also not impossible.
It would be amazing. That's like the sitcom.
I can also see some spouses I know of judges.
Martha, why's the flag upside down? Oh, Sam, I just was so...
I think you're entirely right, Justin. So one of the elements that you were recusable for in the lower courts, anything lower than the Supreme Court, is if you are unable to be impartial, or there's an appearance of lack of impartiality, that you have been biased in some way to the point where, regardless of how you are, if it appears that you are, you need to recuse yourself because the legitimacy of the court is important. The Supreme Court's not held to that standard. The Supreme Court basically governs itself. There's nothing that you can do to make that happen. But that's kind of what's being keyed off right now is, well, if we could make Alito appear to be so biased, then he ought to recuse himself because that would happen. And this is a bad path to go down. Because you don't want to get into a situation where if you don't like the outcome of the court, which happens all the time and we will all experience if we haven't, you don't want to get to the point where the other party then figures out how to knock out judges as a means to get the political outcome they couldn't get through the legislature.
And we are on Judge 2 right now because they went after Clarence Thomas first and now they're going after Samuel Alito. And look, I think that there are concerted efforts at work to do that. I think that there are people who see delegitimizing the Supreme Court as a pathway for political success. I don't begrudge them their ability to do it. It is within their First Amendment rights to spend money to try and do it. We can all find it tasteful or distasteful. The role of the press, especially what is supposed to be the paragon of the biggest circulation paper in America, because I'm that old and I still refer to that metric, you should hopefully have more standards than, I don't know, the Daily Coast blog from 2004 that would just uncritically run press releases from activist organizations.
I'll quickly touch on the whole Christian nationalism thing that's floating around there with the Pinewood flag, right? So there's some group of people, I don't know how many, that believe America should be legally a Christian nation and that it should be in the Constitution, should be part of the law, they're in the minority. I disagree with Alito and how he looks at church and state, by the way. I think he's wrong about that, looking at the decisions he's made over the last few years, or he's voted on. I think that the Roberts Court itself is in the wrong on separation of church and state, but not that wrong. Like the dividing line on church-state relations and jurisprudence is basically, do you want a chain link fence, or do you view it like how you view chaplains at Congress? So like if I'm a chain link fence guy, I want you to be able to poke your finger through in a few isolated things, but otherwise I want religion and politics completely separate. I do not want them going into each other's spheres. The chaplain crowd views it more like there's a public space and it's the job of the government to be neutral, but not to preclude the government from going there. So if Congress wants to have a chaplain, as long as we don't pick and choose which religions are allowed to participate, there's no problem here. That's more or less where the Republicans on the court are right now, or at least Roberts and Alito, and I think probably Kavanaugh and a couple of the other ones. I disagree with their take on that, but there is a certain level of pluralism built into that and a certain level of neutrality built into that is absent from the whole Christian nationalism thing. That's a whole other ballpark, and I would be very, very surprised if anybody on the court held that view. For that regard, I would be surprised if really anybody other than maybe Clarence Thomas or Alito liked Trump on the court, including the Republicans. My guess is they're probably deep establishment anti-Trumpers across the board. I doubt they like him very much.
In D.C.?
In D.C.
I've heard everything.
I think Clarence Thomas might like him because everybody's like hated Clarence Thomas for 40 years, and so I think he might just hate everybody and like Trump as a result. That wouldn't surprise me, but I would be surprised if Roberts just loves Trump.
Yeah, and Amy Coney Barrett, who's like this nice mom, and then, Trump's on this porn star trial. I just don't think that's her vibe. Yeah.
Patreon.com/We're Not Wrong is where to go if you want to support the show. How many Patreon supporters do we have in the crowd?
Thank you.
Good people.
Paying for my dog's neckties. Thank you.
On this Patreon edition of the show, we are going to be talking about the UK election.
Huzzah!
This topic's clearly for you, Andrew.
That is as excited as British people get.
Yeah.
So that was actually a pretty good approximation.
Thank you so much, everybody, for doing this. Again, you guys are the lifeblood of the show. We really appreciate your support. Since the moment that we started doing podcasts together, you guys have been there for us. So give yourselves a round of applause for that.
Yeah. I know for a fact one of the people in the audience is recuperating from heart surgery and is here tonight. I'll start crying. I've had a couple of friends that have reached out to me that one of my friends, his father recently died at Parkinson's, and he reached out to me. We talked earlier that he's been listening to our show and that it's made the drive to visit his family easier, that he's felt like he's been with friends, that it's been a source of joy and solace for him. So I'm very grateful for everybody here. There's a lot of really good people.
Yes. Me too. Talk about Nikki Haley. Former presidential candidate Haley announced that she will vote for Donald Trump this week, despite previously calling him not qualified to lead the nation. This marks her first political appearance since suspending her campaign. Haley, who served as a U.S. ambassador to the United Nations under Trump, has been a vocal critic of his actions as of late, labeling him as unhinged. During an event at the Hudson Institute, Haley reiterated her support for Trump while maintaining her critical stance expressed in her suspension speech. She emphasized that Trump must work to earn the votes of Republicans who did not support him, advocating for inclusive politics. Trump, however, has stated that Haley is not being considered for a vice presidential position.
No.
Yeah. This comes as a blow to the Biden campaign, which has spent over $1 million in advertising in swing states, highlighting Trump trashing Haley. The Biden campaign responded to Haley's announcement by asserting that Republican voters remain opposed to Trump, emphasizing a commitment to democracy, alliances, and bipartisan cooperation while rejecting the divisiveness that Trump represents. Jen Briney, a humiliation for Haley or just a predictable political moment?
I mean, at this point, do these people have any shame? Because she just ran a whole campaign about how awful Trump is. And so to turn around and endorse him, I don't think anyone's surprised, but certainly disappointed. I had a conversation with one of the people that I love very much in my life, a 2-time Trump voter.
In the same election or two different?
Yeah, but Yeah, this person really wanted Nikki Haley, and she called me just to say how disappointed she was in this. It was just like, here she thought, like, well, first of all, she loved Chris Christie, and then, that didn't work out. And so Haley was the new person. It was just like, I want to remain a Republican, but I just am not okay with any of this Trump stuff. And Nikki Haley was the one that she was excited about, and now she's just, like, so disappointed. Unless Trump picks Haley for VP, and then she was like, and then I'll vote for him. So it's, I think it's predictable, but sad. I don't know.
Did you ever see any kind of moral certitude in Nikki Haley? Or did you just hope that, because the Biden campaign very much hopes that she is a permission structure to not vote for Trump at the very least, or vote for Biden at the best. Did you ever think of her as that?
She served in his administration.
Yeah.
So, no.
According to who?
No, I think there was a lot of things that were said in a campaign, and as we've seen with a lot of Republicans who said things in their campaigns and then kissed the ring, this is what they do. And I think it's disappointing to voters who want someone who believes what they say. At the very least, I do have to give credit to Chris Christie, where he meant what he said, and he's never walked it back. So at least in this election,
for the Trump administration.
Did
No,
he?
he didn't.
No.
He was the first one to endorse Trump of the major candidates
He
back in 2016.
really wanted to, and allegedly it was Jared Kushner getting revenge for Christie prosecuting his father that scuttled it. But
he wanted to be like ambassador.
Attorney General.
Oh, Attorney General.
He wanted to be Attorney General, and so.
But in this election cycle, Chris Christie has been anti-Trump and hasn't wavered. So
He left a good job in TV, so he could run on ABC.
I remember you thinking that was part of his overall television career arc. Do you think he'll be back?
I don't know. He's good on TV.
He'll get an MSNBC
The only question is, what is the market for that right now? Like, Never Trump is a shrinking brand, so I don't know if that.
I am friends with multiple prominent Never Trumpers, which is not a good sign for Never Trumpers. I am not emblematic of the.
You are a real graveyard of political ambition, aren't you? So yeah, I mean, I don't know. He might be, but Heaton, did you see moral certitude in Nikki Haley?
Maybe. I don't know. Put not your faith in princes. I think that this is yet another indictment of politicians in general, is how I look at it. I think that politicians as a species tend to think in terms of course I should be in the room. Would it be better for me to take a principled stance and leave power and leave my job, or would it be better for me to make this compromise and be one of the good people in the room? I think 99.9% of the time, all politicians believe I'm one of the good guys. It's better for me to be in the room, even if it means compromising. It's very, very rare for politicians to knowingly make a decision that will end their career and do it anyway. I can think of very, very few instances where I've seen that. So I'm not very much surprised by it. I don't know to what extent Nikki Haley believed all of that. I don't really think she played a hardcore card at any point, because she was sort of lukewarm on Trump, and then she worked for his administration. And then she left, but she didn't really talk that bad about him. And then she ran, and then she did talk about him. So no, I'm seeing more opportunism than anything else. The thing that I would be curious about is, what the fuck is her play here? What is she trying to do? Because she did make enough of a stink about Trump that I don't think she's going to be welcomed back into the fold as like DeSantis was.
Yeah, but I think she's trying to play to the party. I think she's trying to be like a good team player with the Republican Party, because she really was the runner-up. So for the next election cycle, I think she's setting it up so that they'll be like,
maybe so.
Team Red, like she's one of us.
Back in the day, that used to be the way it worked in the Republican Party. Ask Ted Cruz. That doesn't happen so much these days, but it used to be that when you're the runner-up, the next cycle, you're going to be the guy back in a far more orderly country club version of the Republican Party.
All the guys I'm friends with.
Yeah, we are now in the Mad Max War Boy Witness Me phase of the Republican Party.
She must still have ambitions to run for higher office in general then, because if
you think?
If she were, because she could have cashed out. She could, if she wanted to go get a job as an ambassador or something, or work for a Biden administration, she could have just gone pure anti-Trump, dare I say, Bill Weld. And could have probably scored a lot of points for the Democratic
Fuck over the libertarians like that, Bill Weld.
Something like that, yeah.
Low moral character, Bill Weld.
You know what? I'm not going to speak anything about this because I know the Libertarian Convention's happening this weekend, and a lot of these people are armed.
Oh, no, yeah. Oh, you think that crowd is going to be? They're my people talking about low moral character, Bill Weld. All right, so here's my take. Nikki Haley did it because she wants to survive in advance. She spent her entire career in the Republican Party. It is the world of fan fiction that imagines that you're going to Sorkonian-like saunter to a lectern, give a stirring speech, and then be warmly welcomed by everybody on the other side of the fence. Doesn't work like that. There's a lot that goes into it. There's donors and staff and infrastructure that you've built up. There's favors that you have accrued throughout your life that you would just have to totally declare bankruptcy on if you wanted to go off the reservation. The more realistic thing for Nikki Haley is just be rich. You can just be rich for the rest of your life. You're still well liked by a lot of rich people. You already sat on the Boeing board, although maybe that's not the best thing.
Did she fly out of it unexpectedly at some point?
But, she can go be on boards. She can live on her private island in South Carolina and just be hella rich and, have one of her kids run for office at some point. But she doesn't want to. She still feels like she's in her prime. She's still young. She's still a household name.
She's under 82. She can run for president, run for Senate.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think she just wants to survive in advance. And then here's the other big thing. The real decision for her was never if she would endorse Biden. The big decision for her is whether or not she would just not say anything.
Do you mean endorse Trump?
What?
Was she ever going to endorse Biden, or did you not mean to say Biden?
No, that was it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Was she going to endorse Biden, endorse Trump, or not say anything at all?
Okay.
Yeah.
The three
Gotcha.
options. Yeah.
And what the Biden campaign was hoping desperately was that she would just shut up, just go away, and that would be that. And then she could be used as a totem, as a hood ornament to say, Nikki Haley's not voting for Trump. You shouldn't vote for Trump. They've already done that in a bunch of ads that they played in Pennsylvania and other swing states. So that was their strategy. The problem is that the polls that have come out over the last 2 weeks came out. And now you are seeing Biden getting his ass kicked in the Sun Belt. His coalition has fallen apart with Latinos and black men in particular. And so he is getting his ass kicked in Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina. In the past, Nevada, Arizona, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania have all voted as a block. They did for Trump in 2016. They did for Biden in 2020. So you're now hoping, at best, if you're the Biden team, that those Sun Belt states won't matter. You're kind of almost writing them off. And now you are betting that you can win all three of Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, which is to say, narrow. We are getting into hope and pray, fingers crossed territory if these numbers hold. And so I think you probably, this is a guess, all right? This is my own guess. You probably had people that were Haley donors that are like, I'd kind of like some seat at the table in the next administration. This is looking more like the idea that Donald Trump is going to be president. They probably don't have a whole lot of faith in the campaign that Joe Biden is running, and boy, who could blame them? So I think if Haley's seeing some of her donors flow into that camp, then she's like, survive in advance. And so now on the Trump side, the thing that she provides is to be a flight attendant to all those people in the suburbs, especially in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, that if you hate Donald Trump, but you really hate Joe Biden, follow Nikki Haley's lead. Joe Biden is a catastrophe. You take your thumb, your forefinger, you place them over your nose, and you hit the red button in November. That's what Trump is hoping.
It reminds me of Bernie telling all of us to run or vote for Hillary.
Yep. Well,
Same
vibe. By the way, that's the other thing is that none of this should be surprising. And so everybody forgets about this 4 years on. Do me a favor. Remember that you were in this sauna of a room in Anacostia when you heard Justin say, everybody comes home at the end. It doesn't matter how nasty the primary gets. Primaries have gotten nastier than the one that we saw between Trump and Nikki Haley. Personal shit has come up. I mean, hell, Donald Trump was making fun of Ted Cruz's wife and her instability.
He made fun of his wife and implied that Ted Cruz's dad shot and killed
JFK. And
that was a real thing that happened.
And Ted Cruz came home. Like, this just happens. Politics is a team sport. At the end of the day, before November, you get your assigned jersey, you put it on, and you run into the breach. That is what happens. Any fanciful idea that somebody is going to not do that is usually, if it ever happens, is contingent upon that person leaving politics forever. And so if you imagine that that person has a future in politics, they're gonna come home. They might do it slower. They might ask for more. I would expect that Nikki Haley is probably going to get either a late night time slot on an early night of the convention, or she'd be on a later night earlier in the schedule.
Or be one of the people that talks to the Libertarian Convention coming up in 2 days.
Well, I mean, that's already, what a cavalcade of silliness.
We will report back on this. We will report back on this.
No, because we missed RFK, and we are missing Vivek Ramaswamy debating the winner of another debate. What is
Make it make sense.
Yeah.
Who was the person? Does anybody know who won the debate that's now arguing?
It's happening now, right?
Hey, I know you. Hey, Data Logan. I thought I know you, yeah.
I was the teller that counted that. Russell was going to be.
Okay, all right. Yeah.
Oh, so that already happened. The undercard debate happened, and Russell? Let's give him his props. Clint Russell. Clint Russell versus Vivek Ramaswamy.
There were some wonderful reactions from the audience. People listening at home.
Is Clint Russell here?
There was an audible, and then another person crumpled up like a foil ball that had lost hope in the faith of the universe. So whoever this man is, we must watch him for whatever emotional toil he holds.
He's crumpled like a submarine.
That was the line.
Yeah.
The submarines where we lost the audience. Okay, good to know. Interesting line, but good to know. Okay.
So yeah, here's the other thing about Nikki Haley. She does this constantly. She is Schrodinger's hokey pokey. You never really know whether her left or right foot is either in nor out. She didn't like Trump, backed Marco Rubio in 2016. Liked Trump, got the UN gig, left on good terms with Trump, supported Trump, but was a little on the fence. January 6th happened, said anybody but Trump should be president. Then, 2 weeks later, said, I will not run for president if Donald Trump runs for president. Donald Trump runs for president, she runs for president. She goes into the campaign. She's the last one standing. She says some bad things about Trump. Trump says some bad things about her. And then it's over. And so now the fact that she flipped back and forth is only surprising if you have not paid attention to Nikki Haley over the last entirety of her career.
Yep.
There we go. I think we're ready. Normally we do viewer mail, but viewer mail for our last episode is still rolling in because we are doing them kind of back to back. So would you guys like to ask us some questions? Would Clint Russell like to ask us some questions? All right, anybody who wants to ask questions, come on down here and we will get this party started. It's always one person who needs to do it first. So come on, here we go.
Nice.
A Sissy Pants Heaton listener writes. Sorry, I had to make that joke. So often, you guys all have your bugaboos about certain people claiming to represent an idea or a party or et cetera, and then just not being that, right? Somebody who claims to represent the working class but doesn't actually represent the working class. Somebody claims to like British culture but doesn't like British culture. We like or claims to be, a socialist but loves all the capitalist trappings.
Loves freedom and they bans lab meat.
They love the aesthetics of farmers. It's the aesthetics of a certain class or a certain group that you like the style, you like the fashion, but you love everything else that's the opposite. Can you think of an example of that besides the ones I've listed and what you would do to combat that, right?
Can I think of an example? When you say example of it other than one you listed, you mean like other people in politics? Like,
Politics, or like the one I always think of is punk music. The people who wear the punk clothing and claim to like punk music, but then don't act like punks.
Posers.
I think
Posers.
it's time for a.
How are we gonna weed out these posers, y'all?
I can think of a bill.
Super easy to do graph in audio format. So XY graph. X-axis represents ideology. Y-axis represents rhetoric. These are oftentimes contravene to each other, or they're untethered from each other. I think the United States as a whole is rhetorically very conservative and is operationally progressive, operationally center-left, however you want to phrase that. I think you see a lot of that. Or like, we live in Texas. Like, I'm not going to go on a rant about a particular topic involving density, but if the people of Texas really gave a shit about freedom and private property, they'd probably have less zoning laws. So
They just voted new zoning laws.
true.
Update your shit.
Shout out to Austin. Shout out to Austin.
Fucking hack.
In terms of what you would do, I think you just have to hold people's feet to the fire. The bit that I get that's problematic for me now as I get more old and cynical is I'm less bothered by the hypocrisy of it because I expect that to happen. It's more of the ambiguity that throws me off. So like, I went to an RFK Jr. speech here a few months ago, and I liked what I heard. There at the end, it went off in a weird direction that I didn't like. But when he was talking about give government power, it will inevitably abuse it. He brought up Chinese social credit system and how Orwellian that was. Brought up a lot of free speech stuff, and I was like, great. I am new to him. I don't know if that's something that is like core to his being, or if that's something that's flavor of the week. When Trump was running, I don't think anybody really knew, does Trump mean all this shit? Or is Trump going to like pull the mask off and go, well, now I'm going to be boring? I don't know. So it's the ambiguity that throws me off. I would look at voting records more than anything else. I think that at the end of the day, that's actually what counts with politicians, is how they're going to vote.
Jen, posers.
So I can't remember any specific names, but there's one specific bill that came up when you were saying this, and I believe it was titled the Save American Workers Act, and it had to do with our health care. And so basically the way the Affordable Care Act set it up is that if you work over 30 hours a week, that counts as full-time, you get health care from your employer, assuming they're a large enough company. And the Save American Workers Act would have changed that threshold to 40 hours. So you would have had to work at least 40 hours in order to get that guaranteed health care. How the fuck does that save us? Because for me, having to work overtime to get my benefits, that's a problem. Because I worked in Hawaii. I actually dealt with this. Because Hawaii, it's a 20-hour threshold. So unless I waived my rights to health care, I would only be scheduled for 19 hours. So, like, this is what happens to the workers. And so what they were setting up was a situation in which you
It's
could
like
work...
a consequence that's not intended.
But the parallel would be that the employers could then schedule for 39 hours and then say that's part-time. So that's not saving American workers. And when I think of like what can be done, well, it would be nice if the media talked about that at all, if they told us about any of this, because I think we would vote accordingly. But instead, you just see the name of the bill. Oh, they're trying to save us. How nice of them.
I'd like inflation reduced.
Yes, excellent point, because that's another one, the Inflation Reduction Act. Reading that was a really great bill if you're someone who wants to make your house more energy efficient. There's a ton of money in there. I know it's a government giveaway, there's ideological things about it, whatever, but the fact is, if you're gonna buy a new washer dryer, you want to do it in the time of this bill and then submit for the government to help you pay for it. And the media didn't tell us about all these different benefits. Like, most people don't understand what's in that. I think there's money being left on the table that American people could take advantage of. And so I think the fact that our media covers the fun stuff, covers, the personalities.
Flags.
That's a really good example.
Nine flags.
That's valuable information space that's being taken up by rumors when there's actual bills with actual policy that is getting skipped. And so it's one of the reasons why I do what I do to a very small audience. It's not making a big difference. But when I look at
shut up.
It's not.
It is making a difference.
Okay.
Is it making a difference? Never has altruism been more aggressive.
Thank you for that. I swear I wasn't fishing for that. But I would like to see the tide change a little bit to cover more policy, to cover more stuff like that. And that is something that I feel like we could insist upon more. You know, like we could ask for more of that coverage and say like, oh, I'm going to sign up for this and give the feedback and say this is what we want.
It depends on what you mean by that coverage, because the problem is that nobody sees these bills until the 11th hour, and so you're relying on...
But that's not true. The Save American Workers Act was reintroduced in at least 3 Congresses.
True. All right, so there is...
If I was a member of Congress...
Oh, shit!
To read a bill every Congress? What am I, made of time? I'm gonna read a bill every pope. I've been around for 2 popes and a quantum pope that lived in the attic. That's 3 bills.
We need to get him back to the cloakroom. Let's give a big round of applause for our question. Come here, sir. What's your name?
My name's Chris.
Chris, what's your question?
With the Biden administration seemingly desperate to energize voters, it seems like they've been kind of nibbling around the margins with additional student loan relief and trying to lower gas prices for the summer. It seems like they missed a golden opportunity with stopping short of full legalization of marijuana and just going with rescheduling. And I can't seem to figure out why they came to the conclusion that the pros of rescheduling outweigh the cons of full legalization.
I'll take a whack at that. I mean, I'm going to give due credit to the Biden administration for rescheduling it. That was something that was directed to the FDA, I think, is the relevant board.
Although, to be fair, they've announced that they intend to reschedule it.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
There is a difference.
It's kind of like the promise ring of rescheduling.
Yeah.
My suspicion as to why that's not happening is either they don't really want to do it, but they want to claim credit, or alternately they knew that Schumer will shut it down. Because the way to fully reschedule everything would be to go through Congress. If like you can't change the law on that through executive fiat. You can reschedule it within the existing framework, but you wouldn't be able to completely remove it. And we've had opportunities to fully legalize marijuana. This came, I think, in the last Congress, and Schumer had some mealy-mouthed bullshit about how, well, you could legalize it, but the bill's not quite where we want it, so we're just going to leave it illegal forever. And so I don't know whether Biden gives a shit and just wanted to get the hit without doing anything, or he would have gone further and it would have got shot down, but probably one of those two.
And I think rescheduling does what we want to do. The plain fact is that marijuana is a mind-altering drug, so we can't treat it as if it's not. So if they reschedule it and there's regulations about it, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. The Farm Bill did open up the door to this even happening because they kind of legalized using hemp, which...
There you go, Thomas Massey for the win. You can thank Thomas Massey for buying weed in gas stations now.
Yeah, and like, I can tell you, like, the stuff that's out there now in places where it's illegal, I don't know, it's getting me fucked up. So, so I mean, we have what we want, and I just feel like this is one issue where we can kind of give them the dub. And
also, the politics on weed has changed. We've kind of... The balloon has not popped, but deflated in terms of it being like a revolution, in terms of you being able to put something out federally. And also now it's been legal long enough in certain places that even Biden voters have reasons to not like it. Because, I don't know, cities, some of them like DC, now just smell like weed more than they did before. And so you can be a liberal-minded voter that would be very in line with all the voting profile and be like, I don't know, it stinks now, and just not be for legalizing it federally. So it is not the same. It was always going to be a big electric play to the left. Now, I don't know if it is that same play. I think rescheduling makes the most sense to me politically.
Not for members of the federal workforce.
Oh, that's fair.
He works for the feds. He said it. He said it.
We got a lot of people. People are clapping way too hard at that. Anybody else? Come on, you.
That is a fair
Come on down,
point.
all of you. Come down. We're all gonna do it at once. This person's gonna go first, though. You stand right there. Stand right there, all of you. There we go.
Hi, my name is Victor, and this is a 2-part question for Andrew.
Let the record show that Victor's in a kilt. Please continue.
It's a libertarian convention, of course.
Actually, I'm a libertarian socialist, so...
Fuck.
You're one of those guys with a hyphen. Okay.
If there's one thing more libertarian convention than a man in a kilt, it's a man in a kilt correcting you on what kind of libertarian he is.
So now that you know, Andrew, that you can decorate the halls of Congress, my two-part question is, one, how would you have decorated your hallway back then, and how would you now go decorate your hallway?
So this is theoretically when I was a staffer 10 years ago versus now if I were a member of Congress. If I were a staffer at the time, oh gosh, I'm trying to think. I think I would have done a prank or something because it wouldn't have had any consequences for me. So I would have put up fake duplicate doors on either side. And only the constituents smart enough to figure out the puzzle. You know what I take about that? That's exactly what I would do as a member of Congress too.
There we go. All right. Next person, come on down. What's your name?
Chaz.
Chaz. Where's Chop? Just kidding. Go.
So, part of the reason why we only vote once a year, really, for a lot of the big stuff. Do you guys feel as if we could make voting a much more frequent thing, like every 3 to 4 months, do you think that would help Congress? Do you think that would help our functioning stuff? Or would it be just too much mob rule, whatever is the going story at the time would be, you know, what's going on?
You mean like the people would vote more than once a year?
Yeah. Why not increase the frequency of voting? Do you think that would be good or bad?
I mean, I think having worked a lot of elections, they're pretty expensive to run, and there's people that have to take days off to do it, or else you have a lot of old ladies who are doing it. There's a whole infrastructure involved in elections, and I think that's a factor. And then I also think there's value in having people knowing how long their job is going to be. And I think 2 years is pretty appropriate. So I'm not really looking to have more turnover than we already have. 2 years is pretty good. And we have the ability, like one of the things that gives me hope is that we have the ability to fire the entire House of Representatives every 2 years. That's an opportunity for massive change that we don't actually use. But if we look at the system that we have, like we have a lot of conversations on this show, and I get that we like to play, you know, how would you change the system? But the fact is we have the system that we have. I would like to have more conversations about how do we use the system that we have to get the changes that we want. And I feel like taking advantage of what we do have, this 2-year cycle in the House, that's where I get most of my hope for a massive change. And I just think requiring people to go to the polls even more often when we already think that voting is a chore, I don't think that helps anything. So I'm not for that.
Yeah, I think another way to phrase that question is, would American politics be better if everything was more political? And the answer to that is a resounding fuck no.
Go on.
I agree with there's a practical administrative cost. I agree with that. I also just kind of have an ideological problem with it in that you've got one strain of thinking that goes back to ancient Greece that we ought to have a kind of constant participatory democracy. The word idiot, that word in our lexicon, comes from ancient Greece. An idiot was somebody that didn't participate in the body politic, that stayed home instead of voting. That was an idiot. That's where that term originates. And it comes from a mindset that all of us have a daily obligation to be at the agora and at the forum, getting into the politics of citizens. And that is not the country I live in or want to live in. We live in a republic, and I'm now an old guy that says we live in a republic, not a democracy. I've crossed that bridge. I've made peace with that. I want to have a government that functions where, I should say, I want politics to function well, but be small enough that most people are not thinking about it on a daily basis. I think if the country's working really well, you would forget who the vice president is on a regular basis because it wouldn't matter to your day-to-day life.
Like the 90s.
Like the 90s. Like it's like what it used to be. We've talked about this.
Ask Murphy Brown about that.
It used to be like when I first started traveling abroad, back when Harper was the Prime Minister of Canada. No Harper fans. I would meet Canadians and go, "Who's your Prime Minister?" And they'd go, "Harper." And I'd be like, "My God!" Like they forgot for a second. Like Australia, lost one of its prime ministers one time. You know, they lost the prime minister. They never talk about that. That's fucking awesome.
He just went off the coast.
Yeah,
never
he just
came
left. I don't know. Like he could come back he could come back with King Arthur or some shit.
There's some great conspiracy theories on that. He went on a Soviet sub.
Yeah.
All right, you had a follow up.
He never came back?
No.
Harold Holt went swimming and didn't come back, and they don't talk about that, and that's fucking weird. If like Gerald Ford had gone swimming in the Potomac and never came back, the entire History Channel would be nothing but Gerald Ford conspiracy.
Who was that senator that went for that hike in the mountains for like 3 weeks? Sanford, yes.
Sanford. No, yeah, he was. Yeah.
He was the governor at the time.
He wasn't hiking in the mountains, was he?
Oh, he was doing something else south of the border.
He was plowing some fields, as I recall.
Yeah. They were together. He's wait, is he a representative now?
No,
he
lost to not Nancy
Nancy Macy, yeah,
Okay.
it was Nancy Macy's seat, but he had been in the House again after that.
House governor scandal is back now.
Yeah.
Same state?
Same state.
Yeah.
Same state.
Yeah, same state.
Amazing.
And he was with that
Amazing.
lady for a while. It was only like semi recently that they
Oh,
broke
God,
up.
I would hope
Before he
so.
decided to do crop rotation?
All right, real quick follow up.
Yeah. So we have the most secure military communications in the world. Someone's on a military phone, you send a text, it's not getting decrypted. How would you feel about the government doing a big program to spread that technology for voting so that everyone could vote from their phones? Do you feel like that would lessen or increase our voting systems, and how would it help?
I don't trust fully electronic voting. And that's the reason I don't like that. I want to be able to give the old ladies something that they can actually count and say, like, this is what it was. I think recounts are really important. And even though I'm aware that technology exists, I don't trust the administrations to actually do that. Like, I don't have enough faith in people that those elections wouldn't be rigged. So I want paper ballots. In fact, the fact that we don't require something that can be physically counted is something that really bothers me. There's, I think, 6 states, you might know, but there's like 6 states around that you can go to a voting machine, press it, and you just have to trust the tech is counting it correctly. So I want receipts. I want something that is to be counted. And that's, even though I understand the idea behind it, it would be easier. I don't think voting is all that hard. Like, going across the street to the polls, I don't think it's that much of a burden that we need that drastic of a change.
I'm more bullish. I'm not at all worried to do online banking. And if I'm not worried to do online banking, I think we could work something out that would be an online equivalent. Absent that, because I think that those are valid concerns, when you have an election that is really, really close and really, really litigated, there are some benefits to having carbon copies that you can actually sift through, knowing that if somebody's rigging it, they're going to at least have to physically move some shit. So there's some benefits to that. If your concern is, it sounds like your questions are kind of oriented around trying to make democracy more accessible to people. And I think there are ways that we could do that. So like, I like states that do automatic mail-in ballots. I think that that's a good idea. I don't want to have to go vote on voting day, not even because my time's that valuable, but because I forget every time. And then I have to do, I would rather just be able to mail it in within a month period.
Wait, so automatic mail-in ballot, so everybody in the area gets a ballot automatically, or did you have to opt in to get a mail-in ballot? Because that is a big line of contention.
I like automatic because in the last 2 states I've lived in, we were just sent automatic ballots, and it was great because
Are
we
you
had
sure you
plenty of
didn't
time.
opt into it?
Oh, I'm positive. In Washington State,
Well, Washington,
at
they have
least.
only mail-in ballots.
Yeah, they only have, and it was
But
really
California's
nice.
opted.
It wasn't during COVID, so we all got ballots.
Well, true.
So that was the 2020. I was in California,
That
and then
famously agreed upon election.
I know, but it was automatic, and I just found the experience to be really nice because I got to see what was actually on my ballot. Because I've gotten sample ballots before that I've used to, study and figure out who I wanted to vote for, and then I get to the actual polls and be like, who are these judges? Like, I like that I had my actual ballot. I had time to think about it. I had time to research it. And then from the administrative side, because I like to work the elections, it was really nice and made everything a lot faster that people were just handing us those ballots. So if you actually want to hand it to a person, we allow that. You get your sticker, which was very important to people. And it just made election day so much faster that there were so many people that weren't waiting in line and using our equipment.
I want the mail-in ballot. Now, the real reason I want mail-in ballots is I feel very strongly you shouldn't vote if you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And I rarely fill out a ballot 100%. I do this for a goddamn living. And I can't think of a time I filled out a ballot 100% because if I encounter a question that I don't know, I won't vote on it because I don't want to fuck it up. And so I would love the ability to if I was being really smart and ahead of the game, I would go home and research all of it and remember it and go, I'm less likely to do that. I'd rather get the ballot and be able to sit at my computer and research everything.
All right, we're going to blast through these really, really fast because it's hot as fuck in here.
Ryan here, minor question on the Nikki Haley conversation. Do you think it could be described as a misstep by the Biden campaign to run the ads, and if they hadn't, that she might have sat quietly, or is she so flippy-floppy and everyone...
Yes, it was a mistake because it didn't work out, and they bet on a thing that they didn't have to. They could have found another totem to split that kind of demographic. Instead, they bet on Nikki Haley shutting up. They lost, but I don't think that it would have affected Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley's donors affect Nikki Haley more than anything that...
You don't think it forced her hand at all?
Fuck no. No. No, I mean, I think it's whatever Joe Biden does is what Joe Biden does. She cares about where her future is. Her future lies within the Republican Party. So if Joe Biden was doing great and all of a sudden those Nikki Haley donors were donating to Joe Biden, then it would matter. But I don't think that anything Joe Biden did particularly affected her. Come on over.
Justin, can you hear me? Justin, Jen, Andrew, thank you all for being here. I'm Matthew.
Hey, Matthew.
So you're transported back to the founding. What amendment are you adding to the Constitution?
Oh, mandatory conscription to patreon.com/we're not wrong.
I would have an amendment in the Constitution that says, this is explicitly stated herein, the abilities and powers of the government are only that which has been allocated to it in this document. That's what I would do. I think like we were talking about Alito earlier, that means like Dobbs v. Jackson, Roe v. Wade. When you get into Roe v. Wade logic, the logic of Roe v. Wade deep down was you have rights that exist outside of the Constitution, and the Constitution restrains the government. It doesn't define your rights. I agree with that. They didn't then go on to say, therefore, all of the other shit going on in the American government is illegal because it's not in the Constitution. I would have something like that. I would have something that made the Constitution explicitly a constraining element on the government that said, if you want a government agency to exist at the federal level, it needs to be something that's been empowered by this document.
Yeah, and mine's actually kind of a play on that, because I would like some guarantees, because we have some questions, like I'm channeling Bernie Sanders here, but like healthcare is a right, not a privilege. Well, not in this country. You know, I would have liked to have had a list of like, this is what the government's function actually is, whether it's military, healthcare, police, firemen. Like, I would like to have the list and be like, you are guaranteed these things in return for your taxes, because it's awfully wishy-washy. And so, yeah, I think some clarity could have been useful.
All right, thank you very much. Come on up.
Hi, I'm Sean Lavasser. We talked back in
you were in New Hampshire.
Yeah, you look very familiar. Nice to see you.
He's like a deadhead, but for We're Not Wrong. I love it.
The elected libertarian we did you just talked to, and you had a hard time believing I was actually elected.
Still am, sir. Still am.
Well, let's see if you have a hard time believing if I get elected in the next couple of days. I'm running for the Libertarian National Committee for secretary. And I didn't have a question. I just saw so many libertarians in the room. I needed to pimp my campaign.
Oh, I love it.
Look at the hustle. You can't knock the hustle. Sean Lavasser for LNC secretary. And now he's just going to leave. Look at that. All right. Sir, come on over here so people can see. What's your name?
David, and my question is very simple. Do you think that raising the pay of most government employees will help cut down on corruption and lobbying, because they won't have as much of an incentive to make money, because we actually give them a considerable pay raise? So,
knowing the crowd makeup, answer this one carefully. Thank you very much.
No, I don't. In that you're saying all federal employees. I don't think most federal employees are subject to lobbying elements, because they're not going to be writing the laws, right? They might, if you're working on the Hill, you might position yourself to do it. I think that there are certain jobs that should be paid more. I'm no longer a staffer, but I do think staffers should be paid more. But it has less to do with my fears of corruption. It has more to do with my concerns about turnover. I think you don't want to have a system where the smarter the people get in the institution, the more they are apt to leave to get a higher paying job. So I would give more money to staffers, for example. And I also think that you need to adjust the way pay salaries work in the judiciary. Right now, it's a flat rate. Every judge gets the same amount as any member of Congress, and on the federal level. And that I don't think is a good idea. It works great if you happen to be in, say, Oklahoma, which is a low cost of living. But if you're in New York, what you do is you become a judge, you do that for 5 years to get your credentials, then you go to private practice and make a shit ton of money. And that's not good for the people of New York. But otherwise, I wouldn't, I think the people should be paid for the work that they're doing, and that DC should be turned into a museum area, and all the federal agencies should be scattered.
Yeah,
Boo!
And as for the members themselves, I think $174,000 a year minimum wage is pretty good, and I think you could pay Nancy Pelosi $1 million a year and she'd still be buying NVIDIA.
Yeah,
so.
I would potentially raise rates for Congress, and that's not because I like Congress or I like politicians, but because We are asking them to maintain a residency in their state and to live in one of the most expensive cities in the union. That's a thing. I would factor that into cost of living, or better yet, I would have Congress dorms. I would have public congressional dorms that they are welcome.
I'll tell you what,
bunk beds.
we saw some creative living on our tour of Congress.
did.
Some
We did.
creative living. Good God, there is a fan going now.
Oh, bless you.
Thank you, Blue.
Feels like God just licked my butt. It is magical. Sir, what's your name?
Austin.
What do you got on your mind?
Outside of evacuating DC statehood.
All right, going the other way. This is another careful one. DC statehood.
I don't like taxation without representation. I really don't. I think y'all deserve
hack.
to vote. I'm not a hack. I believe it.
Yeah, whatever. Give her applause.
I am very much in favor of Puerto Rican statehood and Washington, D.C. statehood, but I also don't want an imperial capital. So what I would do is take the federal agencies and put them throughout the United States. I'd put the Department of Education in Florida to make everybody's head fucking explode. I could maybe see why the Department of Agriculture ought to be in, like, I don't know, Nebraska or someplace they fucking farm. I could see some benefits to that. I do not like the idea of there being a state which can create its own government affluence at the expense of everybody else, and it has voting members that can do that. I think it's a bad incentive structure. But I think that it's true. We should have representation if you're having taxation. And so my solution is to quit thinking like we're in the 17th century, quit thinking like we need an imperial capital, and distribute it more equally geographically.
Or we just make the capital a lot smaller, because they went to the Vatican, which is like teeny, teeny, tiny. And it's like, we could just draw a line around the actual buildings where they work. So like the Capitol and then...
Make it well, I mean, like I'm staying in Arlington right now, and that's part of Virginia. It was purchased back by the Commonwealth of Virginia. You could do something like that. And
So you're saying literally draw a line around the Capitol.
Supreme Court, White House, and Congress.
And then everything else,
and then
Virginia, Maryland,
I'd be fine with that. I'd be
in.
totally fine with that, yeah.
So this would be, which side are we on? We'd be on the Maryland side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be fine with that, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
Would
people
you
that live
guys
Which
be
is to
fine
say,
with it?
abolish D.C., which...
Mix.
Yeah.
Mix. They might be into it. All right, this is the real last one. Come here.
I'm Data Logan. I was interested in the question about how you would change the Constitution, and you said add verbiage that the government has no powers other than this, except that's already in the Constitution in multiple places, so it's not being enforced. So,
God, this is so great. Somebody's dunking on me.
Hold on. Can I just, before we go any further, Justin, will you please read, because I caught a glimpse of it, would you please read the title of the document this man is holding?
The Constitution of the United Federation of Planets, Philosophy Goal for Change Manifesto, revised 2018 July, just in case you had an older copy. And do me a favor, sir, just hold this mic. I'm just going to fan how big this book is. That is what I like to call half a Harry Potter, right there.
Political Star Trek manifesto, the only kind of manifesto I would conceivably read.
So anyway, no. Right, stop. He's squirming around. He was dunking on Heaton because everything you said is actually already in the Constitution, you fraud.
Yeah. Hold on. So, I feel like you were building up to something, though.
but yeah, I was going to mention, so we need a substantive change to the Constitution that puts a structural barrier to that happening, because it's going to be natural to concentrate power. So I'm just going to bring up my favorite structural barrier that I'm just asking this brain trust. How do we do this? Is how do we make all laws expire? All laws expire, so the legislature has to rethink them and rethink them and rethink them.
I think that's actually something that could be done.
Thank you, Data.
So Thomas Jefferson did not like the idea of there being a permanent constitution. He thought that was tyrannical on a generational level. That in the same way that it was tyrannical for England to run the laws of the United States without our input, that it would be tyrannical to subject the people of the United States in perpetuity to dead folks, which I think is a very interesting philosophical construct that is not without merit. One of the places where that idea took root, oddly enough, was the state of New York. The state of New York, I believe, changes redoes their constitution every 17 years. I don't know if anybody knows this, feel free to correct me. But it's like every 17 years. So their constitution, the governing body of their entire state, expires every 17 years. Now, I think what they largely end up doing is they have a vote on, do we want to keep the Constitution, or do you want to modify it, or do you want to scrap it and do it from... But all the same, though, the people do get to have input on that as a result of it. Every 17 years or whatever it is, everybody goes, I want to do that. I think you could have something like that, where you do that. And that would at least be more elegant than having like a third house and it's only their job to destroy laws, which would be another way to get to where you're going.
I'd have to think about it more, but I don't like the idea of starting from scratch. I feel like it's a recipe for chaos. So I don't know.
So all right, here,
I like
let me
equal rights. I don't want them to like disappear.
Let me pitch this, because I like it. All right.
You love chaos, though.
No. I mean, yes. But that's not the element of me that is poking up now. There are a lot of laws that just stay in existence because they are politically bad to go back on, right? So there's a lot of vice laws. There's a lot of really dumb zoning laws, for example. There's a lot of racist stuff that still exists just because it's not, for whatever reason, things have grown into society and you don't want to rip them out, even though it's probably better for everybody. That didn't make a lot of sense. And at the very least, it's just another annoying thing that people have to understand, and it only empowers lawyers, essentially, to take advantage of certain things. So let's say not, I mean, I'm sure this is the Libertarian Convention, so people would want laws to expire every hour on the hour unless there's express...
No law past lunch.
Yeah, exactly.
My going...
But I would say something like, 2 presidential terms, like every 8 years. And so at that point, it's something that has plenty of time. If we can't think of a reason to have some politicians say we need to do this again, then it just falls off the books. What do you say to that?
No.
Why? You just love your precious little laws? You want to go to bed with your precious little laws and hug them and kiss them?
I just think that there are some laws that are important and protect us in certain ways, and I don't like the idea of them disappearing because Congress does nothing. Like, Congress does nothing a lot, so...
That's what I'm counting on.
Yeah.
People are just yelling their least favorite laws.
Yeah, now they're the libertarians are mad at me. Surprise, surprise.
The 1962 Jute tariff.
Listen, I understand that the Patriot Act is a thing. I'm not saying that all laws are good, but so is the Affordable Care Act. And I would like for that to stay in existence. Otherwise, the insurance companies can go ahead and deny all our claims. They're already finding ways around it. But I can tell you that law killed my friend when I was 15 because they denied her treatment. I don't want that to come back. But that's a politically charged
So
law.
let's lower the threshold then. Let's just say that you need 20 people in the House to do it. So it would be literally just people remembering it to vote for it.
Sort of like the opposite, like you need a super majority for certain things.
Yeah.
You need like an under minority. You need a quorum of 20% of the House to vote in order to retain the law.
Yeah.
And I don't know. That's what I'm saying about these. We have the system that we have. I don't know the use of this. I just know that I don't think scrapping the whole government, even on an 8-year timeline, is a good idea. There's just certain things that I don't think we need to relitigate all the time because we see how functional Congress is now.
Careful how you're talking. It's Libertarian Convention time.
Oh, I'm aware.
You're smelling real statist in here.
You know what? I've been called that before, but I do believe that government has a role. I really do.
No, I know. And I'm on your side.
Do yourself, sir.
No, of course. If anything, this is really, and I think we're thinking about it on 2 different ends of the spectrum. You're thinking of very, very important laws that by way of this could go away. And I'm thinking of really dumb blue laws that you can't buy a horse without kissing it first.
Or there's also a lot of laws that I think Brink Lindsay describes as low-hanging fruit guarded by dragons, where everyone's that's fucking stupid. But there's a really good lobby there that's managed to get it entrenched. There's things like that. So another idea that I know that you and I have played around with, Data, is the idea that you need different levels of a voting consensus depending on the level of government you're operating at. So simple majority for the local level, 60% at the state level, 80% at the federal level. And I think something like that might work. I would like for there to be more federalism in the United States. I would like us to look more like Europe in that I would like us to have
Trees!
more, huh?
Trees!
Trees would be great. I have a flag flying at my home in New Jersey right fucking now to that effect.
I said trains.
Trains.
Like choo-choo.
Trains are good too. Trains are good too. It's all right. But like that's one of the I think like a lot of the problems we have right now I think would be better if we actually were more European in the sense that we had more state by state variance and more governance that was happening at the state level, and you might need to have something that modifies the incentive structure so that there's relatively few activity going on at the national level and people are more concentrated at the state level or something like that.
Let me also say that with that kind of idea, I am way more for it. Not on a federal level. I agree with you. Federal laws should be federal laws. There's a reason why they get deliberated through like various different forms of representation. But city laws, state laws.
I've got a great.
There's some yahoos that fucking throw some shit on the books there.
A great example of a law that like people forgot about here. All right, history buffs. When did World War I end? Wrong. It ended in 1956, legally. Because
we're still in the Korean War.
Andorra, which, as you know, has dual heads of state vested in the Archbishop of Cardinal of Balboa.
Duh, idiot.
Yeah, and the head of France. So they went to war in World War I on behalf of France and Spain, all 30 farmers, and went to war with Germany, left early for the harvest, didn't return, didn't participate in World War II, forgot. And then in the 50s, the mayor of Andorra la Vella, which is the highest level of government that they have, was going through the books and went, did we not accept Germany's surrender in World War I? So they had to very sheepishly get on the red phone with West Berlin and go, yeah, we accept your surrender. Thank you so much. Please don't invade us. Click.
Well, friends, that brings us to the end of our show. Thank you to Washington, D.C. for coming out. For Jen Bryony and Andrew Heaton, I'm Justin Robert Young, and we're
not wrong!
Woo!
Dog and Pony Show audio.